Hello and welcome to the fourth session of Africa Week. We have today a very special speaker and a very special session, and as well it is very special topic. Let me thank you very much, Jan Sinclair, for joining Africa Week and for accepting our invitation. We are so glad to have you today. And let me please introduce you to our audience. Jan Sinclair is currently working as Senior Client Partner at the Center for Inclusive Leadership, who are Workplace Inclusion Specialists. Jan has enjoyed a career with Reader's Digest and IBM, spanning plus 35 years. She is a versatile and experienced strategist with deep knowledge and experience. She has deep and broad knowledge in HR niche spaces, where she offers general HR consultancy, technology, inclusion coaching in the diversity, equity, and inclusion arena. Jan, as well, is life and business coach, especially for underrepresented groups. She is also a mentor and a trusted advisor to many. Jan coaches the younger generation to become and live their best lives. She is a proud award winner in the inclusion space. Jan led IBM's gender community connecting women at IBM, where she and her team grew membership up to 5,000 and the number of locations over an 8-year period. During that time, the annual event, apart from International Women's Day, was Taking Your Child to Work Day, encouraging young girls to step into STEM subjects. Finally, Jan is an influencer and inspires others to take action. She was born in the UK to Jamaican parents. She is a published author of My Simple A to Z, the book I wished I had in my 20s. She is also enjoying creating landscape paintings, and this is very wonderful. Jan, thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insights. And we are looking forward to learning from you the things that you wished to know in your 20s, although you're still in your 20s, and you'll forever be in your 20s. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Amira, thank you so much for the introduction and for the invitation to be part of Africa Week. I understand that Pan-Africa Women's Day is celebrated by the African Union on this day, the 31st of July. So happy Women's Day to everybody and happy Africa Week to everybody. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Today, I am going to be talking about my simple A to Z and the things that I wish that I knew in my 20s. So yesterday we listened to Ambassador Aisha Bello, and she was speaking about women who have helped to shape the African continent. First female presidents, queens from Angola who managed complex negotiations, etc. She actually set the stage for my presentation today because there are some common traits which all of these women demonstrated. I have been fortunate to have parents who told me that I could do and be anything I wanted to be. However, when I started my career in corporate, I quickly realized that it wasn't going to be as easy as she described. And that's because whilst my parents, especially my mother, thought I could be anything, the corporation was showing me different signs. And it took me a while to understand that talent and hard work alone wasn't going to get me the promotions that I craved. So something was missing. And it was like there was an unwritten code which no one had told me about. My mother certainly didn't know about it. And I didn't have many role models that looked like me that I could ask the question. So I had to learn as I progressed. And as I've mentored and coached quite a few people over a number of years, I've communicated my findings. And 3 years ago, I decided to put pen to paper and became a published author. So I will impart some of this with you over the next 50 minutes or so. I should also say it's the other reason why I'm really pleased to be here today, and especially talking to you based in, a lot of you based in Egypt, is when I worked as the immigration partner for North and West Africa. So I got to know Egypt really well. And so I would speak to your government programs and try to learn how we could land people in Egypt. I know that you're doing some fantastic work there through technology. You've got innovation hubs and tech hubs. So the women really are pushing forward. So well done on being trailblazers in that area. So let us start. So A is for awareness, but to be more specific, self-awareness. So there is an old psychological framework called the Johari window, and it's used to improve self-awareness. So it's devised by two American men, Joseph Luff and Harry Ingram. And this was in the early 50s, but it still stands true today. And I use it all the time. And here's why. There are 4 stages or quadrants of the Johari window. The first quadrant is open self. So this is things that we know about ourselves and is known to others. So kind of our habits, the way that we react to things, some of our behaviors. The second side is hidden self, and that's things that only we know about each other. So that might be some of our secrets that we don't want to tell anybody, or we know that we react in a particular way. That is known to us. Then there's the unknown self, which is we haven't learned about that yet. That's somewhere in our future. And then there is the blind self, or the blind spot. And this is what others can see about us that we can't see about ourselves. And actually, it makes sense because we don't sit and watch ourselves doing different things. We don't see the reactions on our face and some of the funny faces that we might pull. In my case, I used to roll my eyes in meeting when people said something that made no sense to me, but rather than being vocal about it, I would roll my eyes. And my manager caught on quite quickly and would say, Jan, have you got something to say? I said, no, you said yes, you do, because you've just rolled your eyes again. So these are things like our character, our mannerisms, some of our habits, our behaviors, and our reaction. So I had to see feedback on how I was showing up and ask questions like, what do people say about me when I'm not in the room? What did the promotion board say? Was I a good team player? Did I collaborate? Was I reliable? I know now that feedback is a gift, although some of it I didn't care for at the time in my early age, but I know that there was an element of truth buried within the feedback. And so now I actively seek feedback when required. This awareness has been crucial to my gaining the promotions I crave and creating better relationships in my life. I have been able to tweak some of my behaviors, some of my reactions that perhaps I had learnt when I was younger. But what I've learned is that some of the behaviors and the things that we learn as younger children or teenagers or culturally or traditionally does not translate well into the world of work. So therefore, we have to, somebody's going to tell us about it as a gift, and we have to take it on board so that we can get the positions that we require, and that what we see as a positive, they don't see as a negative, and we're able to tweak that. So that's A. So B is for balance. So getting the balance in life is very important. This is what I have found. There were many times when I was trying to juggle way too many things at once. So being a mother, being a wife, being a career woman or trying to be a career woman, a carer for my elderly mum at the time. I also had responsibility for a young autistic brother. And I was trying to be friends to my friends. And I wish that somebody had told me earlier that I could have everything in life, but not at the same time. I was going to have to prioritize. Trying to juggle everything meant that not a lot was being done well or with excellence. So I had the power to create the balance in my own life. And I was going to have to say no to some things or not yet to some things. So I needed to take time out for me just to breathe for a moment, to be able to recoup and to recharge. That made a much better Jan. I say here, all work and no Jan results in a good for nothing Jan. So if I haven't got that balance in my life, it was then very difficult to offer that balance to other people. Also, I think the crucial thing here is burnout can result. And I've seen that in many times. And I've been close to that, where I've ended up breaking something. So 2 times I've snapped an Achilles tendon. And to be honest, that was my body telling me to just stop for a minute. You're trying to do many things, but in your 20s, I thought I could do it all. So C is for courage. So courage is a heart, mind disposition. And I'll be honest with you, I used to be a real scaredy cat. And my sister will tell you, oh, Jan won't do that because she fears this and she fears that. But I have learned that courage and bravery, even if we don't get things right first time, is a must. I was afraid to ask for what I wanted. And it was quite interesting that I was in a team and I had just got promotion, and so had another lady. And apparently she had a company car. And I said, oh, why hadn't I got a company car? And my manager simply said, you didn't ask. And I thought, okay, well, I'm asking now, can I have my company car, please? And I did get my company car, but for quite a few months, rather than ask for it, having the courage and the bravery to ask for it, and it might sound simple, and it was back in the 80s, I probably was sulking that she had a car and I didn't have a car, but by simply asking, I did actually get that. So I think sometimes we have to, what I say, excuse the pun, put on our big girl panties, fear the fear, and just go for it. Because what's the worst that can happen? Sometimes I failed, and I made mistakes, but I was also learning. But many times I went for it, and it was easy as somebody saying, yeah, of course you can, Jan, not a problem. So I was putting that blockage in my path. And it's interesting to note that I had no problems speaking up for others, but somehow I couldn't do the speaking up for myself. So that's something that I had to learn. I guess I didn't want to be seen as pushy. I didn't want to be seen as assertive. But in this world, I've learned that you have to be sometimes. So I soon changed that habit. D is for determination. So if at first you don't succeed, I'm sure you've heard it says, don't give up, pick yourself up, dust yourself off and try again. So here I always say, I like the word grit, because you've got to have a bit of grit, you've got to have a bit of persistence, and it's one step at a time. Did you know that Walt Disney tried over 300 times to gain a loan to bring his animations to life? Can you imagine a world without Walt Disney? Mickey and Minnie and her shoes. I love shoes, and Minnie's shoes are pretty fantastic. Oprah Winfrey was demoted from her job as a news anchor. Apparently she didn't fit in. So we all know how that turns out. So being consistent and taking action to make something happen is where we've got to get our determination on. E is for education. And this is a quote by my mother. Education is something that no one can take away from you, she said. So get as much education as possible. And at the time, it was free. So I didn't have to pay for it. So she always encouraged to learn as much as you can and take as many subjects, but to listen to the teacher and not to waste the time and study hard. So today, to this day, I am a lifelong learner. I take a short course every year on something obscure, something I know nothing about. So I've been learning about technology. I'm a bit of a tech geek anyway, but I needed to, people kept talking about Kubernetics, and I thought, what is that? And one of my reverse mentors spent some time with me to actually explain what Kubernetics is. I wouldn't even try to explain to you what it is today, but it was an interesting piece of learning, and it's going to be very crucial in technology going forward. So it's important to understand how we learn, because we all learn at different paces. We also have different styles of learning, and we also have different mediums that we might prefer. So with my HR hat on for a moment, I would say, given where we are in the world of work, it's really important for us to keep our skills up to date, because that can be the differentiator in this war for talent between you and someone else getting a new role, a promotion, or even a bigger salary increase. F is for finances. They say look after the pennies and the rest will look after themselves. Well, learning about finances very, very early, I believe, sets us up for a better future, because sometimes we are making financial decisions in our 20s that potentially is going to impact maybe another decade of our life. A lack of finances or debt can cause major stress and lots of sleepless nights. I didn't have a good understanding of money until my late 20s, which sounds a bit strange because I had a mortgage in my 20s. So I'd got the mortgage and wasn't quite balancing, what else was happening as well. So, but what I did learn to do was to seek solid advice from those that are educated in the field. It's an absolute must. What options do we have available to us? I was told very early that you need to save for a pension. Okay, yeah. There was other things that were available. Maybe you could have bought a couple of properties, or you could have invested different ways. But where did you want to be in, say, 10 or 20 years' time? To understand how your finances are going to allow you to do that and live the type of lifestyle that you may want or may crave, understanding finance is very, very important. G is for growth and the growth mindsets. So a growth mindset is a belief that one can develop skills and additional talents through hard work or the right life strategies or guidance from others. And I'll talk about mentor and coaches along the way. So applying the growth mindset has helped me to understand that it didn't matter where I started. It was where I was going to end up that would matter. So at the time, people were ahead of me. They were more educated than me. Some of them had a university degree, and I didn't have a university degree because our family couldn't afford it at the time. But I did get an equivalent degree later on in life. Sometimes I didn't get the job role, but I did learn that in some cases, the job wasn't for me. The timing wasn't right. Something better was being lined up for me. And on the day when I didn't get the job, it was simply that there was a candidate that was simply the best person for the job. So with each life experience comes new learning, but with that growth mindset, it makes things become possible, because if you can believe it, people say you can then receive it and you can live it also. So I've been very much an advocate of understanding that you can grow your talents, you can grow your expertise, and you can get the experience because it's out there. And people are more than willing to help and guide and support. H is for health. So I always say health is our wealth, because whether it's physical health, emotional health, mental health, or spiritual health. I fully appreciate that without my health, I can't help anybody else. So I aim to eat well, I aim to sleep and rest well, and know there's a difference. There's sleep and there's rest, where I'm just going to sit and lounge in the chair for 15 minutes or whatever it takes and close my eyes. That is resting. Having regular medical checks. So as women, there are some things that are going to come our way, whether we like it or not. But there's some things that we can do to help ourselves as well. And once we're looking after everybody else, it's important that we look after ourselves. So dental, opticians, blood pressure, which they say is the silent killer, because there are usually not very many signs that your blood pressure is high. Pedicures, look after your feet. Manicure, beautiful hands. A massage, which will take the kinks out of those muscles, especially when we're sitting all day. And talking to a therapist if we need one. I know in some cultures and some countries that we don't talk our business to somebody else. In Jamaica, they say, we don't wash our dirty linen in public. So that's something I grew up hearing. But sometimes you just need to talk to somebody that isn't your family, that isn't a friend, that will just listen. And I will talk about listening more as we go further. So Steve Jobs, we all know who Steve Jobs says. He said the best 6 doctors in the world are sunlight, rest, exercise, a good diet, self-confidence, and friends. Maintain them in all stages and enjoy a healthy life. On Google, if you'd like to Google his, there's a letter he writes on his deathbed, and it has so much more on there. I can't cover it all today, but I highly recommend just reading that and understand what he says on there. So looking after our health. And of course, the Dalai Lama says that what really surprised him about humanity is that we sacrifice money to recuperate our health. And then we are so anxious about the future that we don't even enjoy the present. And the result is that we do not live in the present or the future. And then sometimes we live like we're not going to die either. So he says, again, it's important for us to look after our health and try and be in the moment as much as possible.